was going to say April, May the 8th, 2025, 7:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My name's Dave McRae, coming to you live from the Voiceman Studios in Toronto, Canada. This is episode 330 of McRae Live. I can't believe we've done 330 of these dog shit shows. We are talking... Oh, geez, I was doing some rearranging and I forgot to reattach my microphone to the boom arm here. Or the microphone arm, not the boom arm necessarily. But anyway, nonetheless, that'll do for today. The Conjuring 4, Last Rites, Patrick Wilson, Miss Farmiga, whatever her name is, I forget now. Are you excited about it? The Conjuring 4, ladies and gentlemen. Excited, yes. Excited, are you excited? Are you excited, ladies and gentlemen? I don't know. Maybe you are, maybe you aren't. We'll see who rolls on and who gives a shit. I am rocking the Exorcist mug today. Look at that. Look at that. There you go. Yeah, baby. Yeah. Why not? Why not? What? What? The Conjuring Last Rites. We had a first look at it today. I actually quite like the poster. And let me just bring up the poster here. I actually quite like this. Whoops. I did the wrong thing. I disappeared. Let me bring up the poster here. Hang on a sec. Where am I going here? It's on the thumbnail, but just to get a better look at it. I actually quite dig this poster. I think this is all right. Not a bad poster. And when I first saw this, it's cool in the sense that it's creative. I actually think the poster for The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It was kind of cool too, with the shadow of the cross on Lorraine's face. Because I first saw this on my phone, I didn't realize that Ed and Lorraine's faces are opposite each other Ed's is upside down, Lorraine's is right. But it's in the shape of the devil, evil, a demon, blah. It just in terms of from a creative standpoint, it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool. Simple, right? It's not too busy. The Conjuring posters don't tend to be very busy anyway, so that's sort of in line. It's cool. I like it. I like the poster. It's all right. It's pretty good. So I watched the trailer this morning. Now, before I talk about the trailer, let me just say that for those of you that may not know, of course, a lot of you probably already do, I'm a big fan of that first Conjuring movie. Came out in 2013. I still think to this day that the first Conjuring movie is one of the best studio-released mainstream horror movies of the last 25 years. That first film. I think The Conjuring 2 is good. I think it's good. I kind of feel the same way about The Conjuring and The Conjuring 2 as I do Insidious and Insidious Chapter 2. And I think it's no coincidence that all four of those movies were directed by James Wan. And I think James Wan has a great horror directing sensibility. I don't think it's any coincidence that his right-hand man, his friend Leigh Whannell is also great. I mean, I think Insidious Chapter 3, for which Leigh Whannell directed, is way better than it has any right being. His Invisible Man is one of the best mainstream, horror movies as well of the last 25 years. And I actually think Wolfman is way better than it gets credit for. I think the amount of vitriol that was spewed that way was so hyperbolic, I just can't take you seriously. But we're talking about The Conjuring. But I don't think The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. It's too bad Leigh Whannell didn't direct that. No, and I don't mean any disrespect to Chavez, the director of the third film. My issue with the third film, I mean, it's not the worst horror movie I've ever seen. It's competently made. It looks good. It's got redeeming qualities. But overall, you can really feel the lack of James Wan's horror directing sensibilities. And what I mean by sensibilities is I mean somebody who, everybody's different, right? Some people will direct a horror movie this way because they tend to lean into this creative style, this creative voice. These are the things this director really likes. These are the things he or she finds scary, the way they want to go about it. I tend to align more with James Wan in terms of I really appreciate his more slow burn approach, his more kind of, taking us on a journey like a roller coaster, not peaking too soon. I appreciate that. And you got that in that first film. That first film especially was a terrific theater experience as well. And I think Insidious, that first one, was great. And Chapter 2, not as good as the first one, but still very good. And I think The Conjuring 2 was the same way. The Conjuring 3 or The Conjuring The Devil Made Me Do It is so... I've only seen it once, but I remember thinking like that, like the opening of The Conjuring The Devil Made Me Do It. I don't know where you go emotionally. In the first 10 minutes of that movie, it's like... The first 10 minutes of that movie could have been the third act in most regular horror films. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was so intense. People were flying all across the room. It was wild. It was wild. And again, I speak as somebody who is, I'm in my mid 40s and, I am somebody that appreciates more nuanced horror, more of that theater of the mind, more slow burn. I'm not saying that you can't peak at some point. You have to eventually. But I just am not, I'm just not somebody that I want to be taken on an emotional journey. And The Devil Made Me Do It just was a run-of-the-mill, standard, modern-day, pedestrian, see it, forget about it horror movie. I don't think there was anything about it that stayed with me. And the thing with horror movies is that you want to, and there's no, at the end of the day, whether an audience takes something with them or not is not up to you. But I really feel that, you want to set yourself up and put yourself and to give yourself the best probability of success where you feel that there are things you are doing and implementing that the audience is really going to resonate with. And I understand that these movies are, and we have to target, the teenagers and the teeny bops and I get all that, but I'm speaking about it from my perspective, and I always will. And The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. It's not a terrible movie, but it is a gigantic step down in the horror sensibilities from the previous two films, especially the first film. And so when I found out that the same director was directing this final installment, I thought, well, I'm not crazy on The Devil Made Me Do It, and that's really all I have to go on. I know he's done other things, but in terms of the Conjuring universe, and so I wasn't particularly excited about it. Of course, they're talking about it's the end of phase 1 in the Conjuring universe. Did you guys know that we were in phase 1? That's right, yeah, this whole time, these last 12 years, we've been in phase 1 of the... Get out of here, phase 1. That was something that was just decided by committee, in some board meeting. We're like, hey, you know what? We got all these things called phase 1. Phase 1, it's lingo. Hey, the hip teenagers like that. That's hot. That's hot. Yeah. What's that? Well, you know what Marvel's doing, right? Like phases, phase 1 and, that buzzword, phase. Yeah, let's call this phase 1. And all like the teenagers and the early 20-somethings go, oh yeah, phase 1. Oh, this is just phase 1. Bob, did you hear it's just phase 1? Oh, totally. So we're going on to phase 2. Yeah, phase 2, phase 1. Shut up. No, shut up with that nonsense. No horror. God, we don't need phases in horror. Just stop it. Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! Jesus Christ, Latter-day Saints. Listen. So but nonetheless, here we are. It's the end of phase 1. This will not be the last Conjuring movie, especially if it does, gangbusters at the box office. If this thing makes 150 million at the box office, it ain't going to be the last time we see Ed and Lorraine Warren. But it is supposed to be the last time. This is the last one. End of phase one. Phases. We're in phases now. Phase one. Phases. Yeah. That's right. It's Me, Billy, chapter 1 and 2. That was just phase 1. We're now on to phase 2, where we... Shut up. Anyway, so I just think it's just silly. Anyway. So, so I wasn't crazy on The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. And, like I said, I like my horror movies that are nuanced, that are slow burn. And that first Conjuring movie, I thought, the reason why I say, to me, it's one of the best mainstream studio-released horror movies of the last 25 years is because it gave me everything I wanted. It surprised me. Because usually mainstream studio-released horror movies are generally speaking, not all the time, there are exceptions to the rule, but generally they're usually like The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. And when The Conjuring came along, again, James Wan, Saw, and, he had done Insidious, at that point. He had done... Dead Silence, which I think is, not his best work, but certainly underrated. And so, The Conjuring it felt like a nice balance, between that slower kind of burn that I really like and allowing your audience to go on this emotional journey, almost as if you're one of, you're part of the family living in that house. It was very, very subtle. The mood was great. The atmosphere was great. It was great. And then, of course, eventually you have to, the climax of the movie got, a little sensational but you know what? But hey, it's earned. At least it's earned, right? It's earned, right? You've gone on a journey. Things don't get wild and crazy till the very end. And even then, it wasn't like wild and crazy. It was maybe in comparison to what we have been, seeing, but it was still, I found a nice balance. You know what I mean? It was a nice balance. It was like, yeah, we can do this and do this and do this and deliver a great movie that makes tons of money at the box office. Whereas, like I said, the opening 10 minutes of The Devil Made Me Do It is like the third act of any other horror. It's like, wow, what are we doing? Like, as an audience, I have nowhere to go now. I've peaked in the first 10 minutes, and I'm just like, why am I watching this movie? So, anyways, on to the trailer for Last Rites. How do I say this? So it doesn't bother me. I don't think there's anything in there that is terrible. But I'm seeing just usual fanfare, right? Which is usually the case. I mean, again, these things, they have to, they're not made for people like me. They're made for a general movie-going audience. So they have to show things. I'd have to go back and watch the original trailer for The Conjuring and see how that was handled. But there was nothing in this trailer that made me excited. It looks like it could be a movie full of just jump scares. And not that the original didn't have a jump scare here or there. It did. But again, it's about balance. When you are constructing a horror movie, and again, I'm speaking at it from the perspective of the horror movies that I like, right? So I completely understand that you may feel very differently. You might like all this. I mean, that's great. But I will always speak at it from the perspective of what I like, and I'm not right or wrong. This is just what I like. And so when it comes to horror movies, for me, I think you can deliver a scary demonic possession movie without peaking in the first 10 minutes of your movie. I mean, imagine if in the first 5 minutes of The Exorcist, Reagan was spewing up green slime and her head was doing a 360 degrees and fuck me. In the first 10 minutes of that movie. It's like, where are we? Like, where do we go? Okay, well, that's it. One of the reasons why The Exorcist is so effective still over, 52 years later and still one of the greatest horror movies of all time. The reason why that movie has endured is not because the effects have endured. No, the effects are dated. It's 1973, right? But one of the reasons why that movie has endured and lasted is because of the nature for which the story is rolled out, right? You know what I mean? And it's more of that slow burn, that pensive, eerie, atmospheric building. And it's almost like, and rightly so, because you have, what's his face? William Friedkin, right? William Friedkin? No, I'm thinking of the, William Friedkin? He was the director, right? Yeah. No. Yeah. Why am I thinking? I get him and Blatty mixed up sometimes when I talk about The Exorcist. Anyway, so he had a documentary filmmaking background. And so that's why in some ways The Exorcist almost feels like it's got a documentarian sort of style to it, and it's very slow burn and atmospheric, and that's why it has endured today. It's not just because it was a classic back in, it was a revered film back then, but it's still a very watchable, scary movie today. Now you have to watch it within its context, of course, because we've come such a long way, which, people don't seem to do. This looks like shit. Looks lame. The effects are lame. Well, because it's 1938. You know what I mean? Talking about other films. That's right. Yeah. Thank you, Barry. And so, it's one of those things where I understand it's 2025 and you're going to, things are going to look more polished. We're going to want to get to things, but you can still create those kinds of movies in today's landscape. And The Conjuring would be a modern version, big budget studio released movie of that. I'm not comparing it to The Exorcist. I'm just saying it was that balance, right? It had that slow burn. It didn't peak in the first 10 minutes. They took you on this journey and a little bit and then a little bit and then a little bit and then a little bit. And you're like on the edge of your, it was great. And so, I see this trailer and I'm like, well, it could be good. I guess. It could be interesting, but I don't know. Like I didn't like the Devil Made Me Do It, despite it having a few redeeming qualities, and it looks good. It's polished. It's competently made from a production standpoint, but most Hollywood movies are competently made from a production value standpoint. But whether this is going to hit the right marks of the Conjuring universe, I just, and I don't know. It didn't wow me. It didn't disappoint me. I just was kind of like, you're seeing so much, and I understand why we have to see so much. But the case is based on, I brought it up here actually. This case is based on the Smurl haunting. I looked this up online. It says Janet and Jack Smurl. Janet and Jack? I'm a big Three's Company fan. Janet and Jack Smurl, along with their family, reported a series of disturbing phenomena in their duplex home, including, this is the real thing, including strange odors, unexplained noises, and physical assaults by an unseen entity. Why is that always the case? The Warrens investigated the case, attributing the disturbances to a demonic presence. The events were later chronicled in the book The Haunted, One Family's Nightmare, and adapted into a 1991 made-for-TV movie. The film adaptation, which is the trailer that was released today, in The Conjuring The Last Rites, or The Conjuring Last Rites, there's no the, set in 1986, the Warrens come out of retirement to assist the Smurl family. The film features Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga reprising their roles as Ed and Lorraine Warren. The cast also includes Rebecca Calder and Elliot Cohen as Janet and Jack Smurl, respectively. The movie aims to provide a more personal and introspective look into the Warrens' lives, making the conclusion of their on-screen journey. So, I think, and I understand that this is not what they, but so I think some of the best horror movies the best horror movies, in my opinion. In terms of like, you know, again, best is subjective. I mean, but I mean like, you know, the real sort of best horror movies are also dramas. They have a drama component to it, because the drama component allows you to get invested into the dynamic of the characters and their relationships, right? And so like The Exorcist, for example, it's a horror movie, sure, but it's a drama as well. It's a character-driven film. It's not a plot-driven film. And some of the best horror movies are either character-driven or are also character-driven and not just plot, you know. And when I see the trailer, I understand why it's like this, but when I see the trailer for Last Rites, I go, this looks plot-driven. I don't really feel... And it's just a first trailer. The movie doesn't come out till September 5th, so maybe there will be other trailers and promos, and maybe we'll get to see more of the heart. Because at the end of the day, like when you look at the first Conjuring and when you look at the second one, and you know the third one they tried to go there too, but the heart of this franchise is the relationship between these two characters. Now, if you do your digging into the real relationship between Ed and Lorraine Warren, there is substantial evidence to suggest that they were frauds and they were full of shit and, you know, whatever. And yeah, I mean, you know, so is the Amityville Horror. If you do digging on that, I mean, chances are the Lutzes were lying through their fucking teeth. And there's evidence to suggest it, right? It's fun to imagine and speculate, but chances are the Amityville Horror House was not haunted. The new owners have been there for years and years and years. It might have changed ownership, you know, a few times, but it didn't change ownership because of any haunting or ghosts. And the owners who live there now are on record as saying, yeah, no, it's fine. Like there's nothing happens here. But it makes for a great story because of Ronald DeFeo and the murders and I Heard the Devil and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, I know I'm all over the place here, but I feel some of the best horror movies are also dramas. And, you know, that's like my own film, right? The House on Port Robinson Road. Now, obviously I'm biased because I wrote it and I want to direct it and make it. But it's not just a horror movie. There's a strong philosophical component and drama to it as well, right? In terms of the characters and their relationships and you know the meat, you know, and their motivations and you know all this kind of stuff. And so yes, it's got the scares and the mood and the atmosphere and the typical Dave McRae shit. But it's not just that, right? And I think some of the best horror movies are like that, to varying degrees of drama and varying degrees of character-driven plots. And, you know, sometimes it's sometimes it's, I mean, it's not a one-size-fits-all, but I just mean that I think that was one of the great things about that first Conjuring film. And I'm not comparing the first Conjuring to The Exorcist. Obviously, The Exorcist is a little more elevated. But in terms of that first Conjuring film, you know, we really, because James Wan took us on this emotional sort of slow burn journey, it allowed us to get emotionally attached to the characters, to their lives, you know, to the dynamic, to the relationship. And you want that. I mean, look at Jaws. Jaws is a character-driven film. It's not a plot-driven film. It's a character-driven film, and it's one of the greatest horror movies of all time, right? And Jaws is about characters. It's about the relationships. It's about these dynamics. And you know, this is obviously stating the obvious, but you know, why do you do that? Well, so people can have a chance to care about the characters. And if you care about the characters and you're emotionally invested in the characters, then you are going to care about what happens to those characters. And then that means that when all the starts happening, you're emotionally invested into the characters and you're emotionally invested into the stakes and the possibility of losing those characters. And then the doesn't seem so hollow and rudimentary and pedestrian, right? Even though it may come across like that. And so, you know, the heart of this franchise has been Ed and Lorraine Warren. And the chemistry between Farmiga and Wilson has been great. They've been great. They were great in the first movie. They were great in the second movie. They were even great in the third movie. Even though the third movie wasn't very good. They were great in it. And so I hope, at the very least, that continues, that relationship continues, because they are the heart, right? That's why you care, you know? And I hope that we get to learn more about the Smurl family, sit with them, you know, maybe it's a husband and a wife and maybe some kids or something, you know, just kind of learn about them. Let us feel like we're part of the family, because watching that first Conjuring film, again, I speak for myself, but when you watch that first film, again, you're not thinking of this consciously, but when films are laid out this way and executed in this manner, you become part of the family. You know, you become part of, you know, I forget the name of the family now in the first movie, but you become a part of them. And so you care about what happens to them, right? You know, you're not thinking about it consciously, but you getting to know them and to laugh with them and to, you know what I mean? And to get to know the dynamics between, you know, the brothers and the sisters and the father and the wife and all that, you become part of the family. And that's what like Jaws was like too, right? You were the fourth guy on that boat. You were the fourth, you know, you were on that boat. You know, you were there going, show me the way to go home. I'm tired and I want to go to bed. I had a little drink about an hour ago and it got right to my head. Wherever I may roam, I know I see your home. You can always hear me sing out. I mean, you loved it. You know, you're sitting there, you're going, yeah, it's great, it's great. Because you're invested. You're invested, right? And so, and again, this is to varying degrees. Not every horror movie. Obviously, I get this is to varying degrees. Like, Dave, like, for example, right? Halloween is a Halloween movie. And at the end of the day, this is a slasher movie. I mean, you have to know your audience. You have to know, you know, what you're working with and what you're dealing with. So please don't misunderstand me that I say that, you know, every horror movie has to be this way in order to be good or successful. No, I'm just saying some of the more elevated horror films are, you know, or some of the horror films that do this or that find that balance, you know, tend to be better than the average, more pedestrian films being released. And I do stand by that. The first Insidious was like that as well, right? And so this trailer, you know, I mean, it's not a terrible trailer in terms of a trailer, but there's nothing in it that really excites me because we see so much, you know, and when I say see so much, I don't mean that we've seen so much. I mean, we're seeing so much of the, you know, and I get that I get it. We got to show that. We got to show it or people aren't going to, you know, and it's like, yeah, but there's ways to, there's ways. I firmly believe, and this is what frustrates me about studios who make decisions by committee. You know, I believe that you can find that balance. You can create a trailer that gets people hyped to the and I mean even general movie-going audiences really intrigued and really excited, and not show all the, you know, pew 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 pew, you know, you know, and so the doll sitting up in the trailer was, you know, I mean, you know, we've seen things like that. The doll floating in the midair, I thought that was really cool. Turn and see that weird face, jump scare, the blood out of the sink. We've seen things like that before. I mean, It Chapter 1 or 2 comes to mind. You know, so or even the original It. We've seen blood in sinks and blood, you know, spilling over. You know, it looks like it's very familiar with its tropes. And, you know, I mean, okay. I mean, this is, but it doesn't do anything to move the needle for me. I don't think studios realize the power that is at their fingertips. And I mean this for even general movie-going audiences. I don't think studios realize the power that is at their fingertips on releasing a trailer that is nuanced, that is scary, that is subtle. My God, I mean, look at some of the trailers that do that and the buzz they get. Now, whether the movie holds up, that's something different. But look at the long legs marketing, right? I mean, unreal. Now, whether you like the movie or not, or you liked it, but you didn't like, you know, the ending, okay, fine. But that marketing was brilliant, right? And, you know, I understand that there's certain, like, I get that, I'm speaking very simplistic on it. There's focus groups that are done and there's reasons why certain trailers and properties are cut the way they are and marketed in the way they are. There's reasons for it. I get that. I'm speaking very much, from a fan perspective. But I will always hold out hope for trailers to be like that. Because of what I desire and love about a great horror movie. And again, that doesn't mean you can't have your shoo, shoo, shoo moment. But there's so much that is seen in that trailer and so little of the character and narrative perspective of it. It's all icing and very little cake. And I get why it's done. But it doesn't do anything to move the needle for me. Now, again, I'd have to go back and watch the first Conjuring film, the first Conjuring trailer to see how that was as well. But, it's not a terrible trailer. I don't think it's awful. But it feels sort of in line with the previous movie, which wasn't that great. And so we'll see. I'm a big fan. Like I said, I'm a big fan of that first movie. One of my favorites of the last 25 years. I like the sequel enough, not as much as the first one, but I like it. And I would like to see them wrap this, Ed and Lorraine story up on a high note. And again, it doesn't have to be amazing. Excuse me. It just has to be good. It just has to be good. Oh, that was good, But we'll see. What did you guys think? Let's go over to the chat room and see what you guys thought. I know Wolfman's got nards, been a member for 11 months. What's going on, Barry? Thank you very much for the member chat. Says, the reason I'm interested is because of the Smurl family. I loved the Haunted 1991, so this will be a remake of sorts of this. I never saw it, so I'm not familiar with the story, but all I'll say is that you want to make a film that scares people, character, because then people live vicariously through those characters. That's when you care about the characters on screen, you don't think about all this consciously. This is, these are things that are happening in your brain synapses, and in your subconscious. But when you care about characters, you begin to live vicariously through those characters on screen. When you don't care about them and when the characters are one-dimensional, you're just sort of going through the motions and you're just kind of watching things unfold as an observer rather than being an active participant, not literally, figuratively, of course, but being an active participant through your, subconscious and your imagination. And that's where horror movies especially can be really effective because it is all about emotions. Horror movies is about emotions. Horror movies are supposed to take you on a journey. That's the point. Whether it's Halloween or whether it's The Exorcist, the point, to varying degrees, but the point is supposed to take you on some sort of emotional journey. If you're not having some sort of emotional reaction while watching a horror movie, and depending on the horror movie, your emotional reaction on the scare meter will be to varying degrees. See, that's why, for a long time, Insidious was considered the scariest movie of all time. Now, a lot of people scoffed at that, but this was actually measured. They were actually doing actual scientific measurement with this. Now, whether you think it's the scariest movie or not, yeah, that's of course that's objective. But in terms of measuring people's pulses and heart rates and all that kind of stuff, there was an article. It was like 5 or 6 years ago, where they did a social experiment, right? And they got a bunch of people and they watched a bunch of horror movies, and Insidious, which is a scary movie, came out on top. And what is one thing that Insidious has that I always talk about? It's got that slow burn, right? That not Insidious. Excuse me, not Insidious. I keep saying Insidious, not Insidious. Sinister, excuse me. Sinister, not Insidious, Sinister. And Sinister was considered the scariest movie of all time. Insidious is a great film as well. But Sinister, people would scoff at that. Sinister is not, but Sinister is a slow burn film, right? Nuanced. I wouldn't necessarily say it's overly character driven, but certainly we spend time with this author and we get to know him and, what makes him tick and his obsession with true crime and all that kind of stuff. And so you begin to care about him, again, to varying degrees, depending on the film. But it's got that slow burn and you, again, you're taking people on a journey, and it's eerie and it's creepy. And so, not everybody's going to feel that way, but there is something to be said for that kind of relationship that you want to have with your audience. And again, it's specific, sometimes horror movies, like a slasher movie, like a Terrifier movie or something. Those aren't character driven films. They're plot driven films. And so it's not, who cares? It is what it is. Like, you have to know your audience. You have to know your material. You have to know what you have. I understand that. But when you look at that first Conjuring movie, it was such a great balance between the two. It wasn't overly character driven where you're going to lose a lot of the people that think you're going to get too stuffy. And it wasn't overly plot driven where you're going to lose people like me, where I'm just like, this is all icing and no cake and I really don't give a shit. You know what I mean? It was that nice balance. And, and when modern mainstream horror movies can do that today, it's impressive. It's impressive. Wayne Downey sends in $5. Thank you, Wayne. Says, just started watching. Started at the beginning. I'm 20 minutes behind, so I'm communicating into the future. Call Guinness. Yes, I will. Thank you, Wayne. Thank you. But what did you guys think of the trailer? Eli Cortez says, I need to check it out. You're talking about something else. Scoffs at Sinister. Oh, Wolfman scoffs at Sinister. Well, hey, that's all the power to you, Wolf. Halloween H2O. No, I'm just busting your balls. Kenny Pham says, I get the Conjuring and the Insidious series mixed up. Yeah, no. Well, Insidious is great. The first Insidious is great. And chapter 2 is good too. The third one is way better than Had Any Right Being, at the end of the day. So, I just want to see, again, like when I sat down to write the house on Port Robinson Road or to finish it, for example, okay, so and I won't talk about this ad nauseum. Don't worry, folks. You don't have to tune out, for those of you that don't care about it. Dave's talking the house on Port Robinson Road. But I think this is important because this is a revelation that I had. So this is interesting. Okay, this is interesting. So, when it comes to the house on Port Robinson Road, you guys know I've been writing it for 20 years. And it wasn't until this past, January that I finally completed it. And one of the reasons why it took me so long was because I was wise enough to know, I was smart enough to know what the film needed or what the story needed, but I wasn't yet wise enough to communicate it because I wasn't old enough, right? Life had to happen. And one of the reasons why I was able to finally finish The House on Port Robinson Road in terms of the screenplay is because of that exact thing I'm talking about here, the heart and the character-driven portion of the story. Listen, writing scary scenes and mood and atmosphere and scares and, all that. That's not, I'm not saying it doesn't take talent. Of course it does. But that stuff I was always very capable of doing from a very young age, right? But I needed more life experience. And since I began writing the script in 2005, right? I've lived life. I've lost both my parents. I've lost friends and family. And, I've lived life. I'm 40, I'll be 46 in like 2 weeks, so I'm nearly 50 years old now. I've lived life and I've loved and lost and been through life, just life. Right. And so, I realize that when I sat down to finally finish the screenplay, I had all this wealth of wisdom and experience to bring to the character-driven portion of the story, and that I finally knew what the heart and what this needs to be in this context of this. That doesn't take away all the scares and the crazy stuff that happens, in the film as well, of course, but that was part of it. And that's why I was like, oh my God. So it was a terrific, and I'm not saying that you can't be 22 years old and write a screenplay like this. I'm not saying you can't. I'm just saying everybody's different. For me, because it's a personal piece, right? I didn't just make this up. It's a personal piece based on a real life thing. I realized that, as the saying goes, life had to happen first before I actually was able to find the true nucleus of the story. Right. And then it's like, oh, yes, of course. And, I just wasn't wise enough yet at 22 years old. You're still quite naive and young at that age. Right. I mean, I was smart enough to know what it needed, but I wasn't wise enough to have my voice communicate that into the written word. And so, I think some of the best stories, some of the best horror movies are also dramas, have a drama component to it. I'm not saying they're all out dramas, but have a drama component to it. They're character-driven films. And then if you can find that balance between the two, because, we don't want to go too character-driven because we're going to look like snobby, people. People are going to think we're snobby, And okay, fine, but we can find that balance, right? And I thought that first Conjuring film did. And I'm not seeing really much here that says that. But we'll see. We'll see what the future holds for Last Rites. Josh McKenna, what's going on, Josh? Thank you. Says, I saw an interview with an actress, said The Others was the scariest movie she'd seen. I haven't watched it yet, but I heard you mention it. Does it have that mood and atmosphere? Oh, yes. Oh, The Others is great. The Others is a character-driven film as well. I mean, it's plot-driven. I mean, every movie has some character and some plot, right? Right? Of course. It's just what some movies lean more heavily into character than they do plot, and vice versa. And Josh, The Others is one of my favorite horror movies of all time. It is, I think it's one of the great modern day horror films of all time. And I like it better than The Sixth Sense. And it's moody, it's atmospheric, it's not blood, guts, and gore, it's nothing like that. It's an elevated it's a psychological horror film. If it had come out today, and I think they're still wanting to do a remake of it, if I'm not mistaken. Why? I don't know why. I mean, you can't tell me that a modern day remake of The Others is going to be nearly as good as the 2000. I mean, I can't help but feel that, we know how it ends. Right. I mean, The Others worked so well because, I don't want to say, Josh, if you haven't seen, and nobody spoil it for Josh, please. But it's got a great ending, twist ending. But anyway, I love it. I'd sit down and watch it as soon as possible. If you love mood and love atmosphere and slow burns and eeriness and creepiness, Josh, sit down today. Rent it, sit down, watch it. I think you will thoroughly love it. Josh Stevens says, talking to Kenny, says, I was thinking the same thing, and they should do a crossover, but both have Patrick Wilson, so it'd be more confusing. Oh, you mean Insidious and The Conjuring? Yeah, I don't think you need to do a crossover necessarily. Jay Beach says, the trailer was okay. Standard horror trailer. Of course, I'll see it. Just happy Blumhouse didn't do it, but of course gave away the whole story. Well, I think it's okay. It's okay knowing the whole story of what happens, in terms of what the story is about. But it's the journey you go on, right? It's living vicariously through the actual narrative beats that you want to sort of keep close to the vest, and I'm not saying that they've revealed everything, but they revealed a lot. They show that it's I don't know. I mean, it's not a terrible trailer. It's actually a very good trailer in terms of well put together. It's going to play well for non-horror community enthusiasts. Like, it's going to play well for the average teenager it pops up in their feed and they like movies and they want to go see a scary movie at spooky time. It's going to play well. It's going to play well to a general movie-going audience. But yeah, you're going to have us stodgy, elitist, horror fans that are going to be like, that's the way it is. Let me see here. Did I get all the member chats or super chats? I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. I think I have. All right. Just want to make sure. Trying to find anybody else talking about the trailer. Let me see here. Josh Stevens says, I think The Conjuring 2 is the best of the franchise, and agree with Dave. The trailer isn't very compelling. If I wasn't already familiar with the other movies, I wouldn't be as excited. For Conjuring 4. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I understand that. That makes sense. Well, yeah, that's a great point. You know, Michael King says Weapons looks good, but once they reveal what actually happened, it loses weight. I may be wrong, but I want to see that. Yeah, well, that's always the case, right? But, that's just the risk that you take. I think there's nothing wrong. And not every movie, not every horror movie necessarily requires you to market it in this manner. But look at Weapons. I mean, look at how powerful and how much buzz there is around that. And it's solely because of the marketing. It's solely because they are playing the long game. They are playing the eeriness and the long game in the marketing. They're not revealing too much. Now, of course, there is, to your point, there is always, that moment that when you find out what it is, there is a possibility that you'll go, oh, that's what it is. Oh, okay. Because you've built up so many expectations in your mind. But there's also the possibility that you'll go, oh, that's really good. Oh, I like that. I think it's important to just, try your best to go in with as little expectations and understand that if it's not something that you hoped it would be, that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. It may just not be what you thought it was going to be. I mean, if it's bad, if it's ridiculous, it should be obvious that it's ridiculous. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, really? That's what it is? Like it's some crazy, cult of, furry creatures that run out into the night and kidnap little kids, and they all sing Jolly Ronald McDonald songs around that. Like, that's ridiculous, right? You're going to go, okay, seriously? Like, what are we doing, right? But say I thought, it was A and it ends up being, more B, and you're like, oh, interesting. Okay. But people get their expectations so much in stone that they just can't deviate from it. But Weapons is, and again, because of the nature, again, it depends on the nature of the narrative. Because of the nature of the narrative, that's why it's being marketed that way, right? Playing that long game. But I think, you don't necessarily market The Conjuring Last Rites in the same way, but you can still market a film like Last Rites in a way that still I believe can still show without showing a lot. Do you know what I mean? And I say this and I mean this. One of the cool things about marketing the It's Me Billy films, if I can speak on this for just a moment, but it relates, so please don't, check out, is because they're short films, right? They're 45 minutes each, essentially. And, there's only so much I can show. And I did all of the, I cut all the trailers and the promos for the films. And because they're short films, it really challenged me with the marketing because, well, they're short films. They're not 10-minute movies. I mean, they're half, the length of a feature, but they're still short films. And so there's only so much I can show in a trailer without showing everything. Like, I don't have a lot of material. I don't have a lot of lines. I don't have a lot of footage that like this plethora of footage that I can, go back to and show. But I think I did a really good job at like if you go back and you watch the official trailers for It's Me Billy chapter 1 and 2, and you watch all of the promos that I cut and all that, look at how much I showed without showing really anything. Do you know what I mean? And again, it's all in how you cut and what is the story and the narrative of the marketing you want out there. You can show a lot. You can give the impression that you can make your audience feel like they've seen a lot, or that they're satisfied with what they've seen, I should say. You can give You can make your audience feel satisfied with what they've seen without showing a lot. And yet you do get a lot from it. It's a real balancing act. It really takes, an understanding of how to cut something like that together. And, you don't have to show all the boom, boom, right away. And maybe you save that, play the marketing a little bit like you would a movie, right? Play the marketing like a slow burn film. Start slow, show us little bits, and then maybe in the last week before the movie comes out, you release a couple of promos where we see, a little bit of that pew, 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 right? But by that time, we're already emotionally invested. And if you play your cards right with that, in the last 2 weeks, say, of the marketing, it's not going to necessarily deter people. It might excite them. But if you show everybody, like if you play the marketing like you do The Devil Made Me Do It, where you peak in the first 10 minutes of the movie and we have nowhere to go emotionally, there's no mystery anymore, there's no excitement anymore, right? If you play your marketing like you play that movie, well, then we're going to be checked out by like the first, by the first trailer. We're going to go, because what do we? But if you play it close to the vest and play it a little more nuanced and build it, that doesn't mean that we're going to like the movie. It doesn't mean we're going to like where the movie goes. No, it doesn't mean that. But those are the risks you take with any movie. You know what I mean? So why not play it and hype people up, right? At the end of the day, people are either going to like it or not. But I think if if you have something really special, why not? Why not? That's how I feel about it anyway. Let me see here. Dude says, good trailer. Looks like the best Conjuring yet. The poster with the faces and the devil is between is excellent. I agree. I do like the poster a lot. And dude is like, yeah, it looks like the best one to me. He's like, I don't give a fuck. Looks like the best one to me. Hey, that's all that matters. Oh yeah. For sure. If it does well at the box office, there will likely be others. I agree with that. 100%. Josh Stevens, Conjuring 5, A New Pope, 2027. That's funny. That is funny. Ryan says, I also didn't like The Nun. Yeah, I never saw them. I didn't see either Nun movie. I didn't see any of the Annabelle movies. I'm not saying that they're bad. I hear that they're shit. I can't say that personally because I haven't seen them. But I never ended up going to see either the Nun films or any of the Annabelle films because when it comes to, here's why so when it comes to Annabelle, and I understand that the one that what's his face did, David Sandberg, I understand the one he did is not that bad. It's pretty good, but he's a pretty competent horror director. So, I know the one he just did that came out, people are all upset about or whatever because it was based on a video game, but I also hear that it's not that bad. Anyway, he's competent. But when it comes to Annabelle, I never thought that they should have done. I mean, that was purely a committee decision that was like, oh, hey, that doll is really creepy. We should make a movie out of that doll. You know what I mean? And Annabelle, to me, like when I watched the first Conjuring, and I know it opens with Annabelle, I get it. But that Conjuring or that character, Annabelle, to me, was just really an auxiliary player. It was just sort of to set the stage that they've done all these other things. I didn't think the story of Annabelle, I didn't think the doll itself was worthy of an entire movie, let alone 3 movies. I think there's 3, right? So I never really found it compelling, or I was never really interested in it. And The Nun, I feel the same way about. I feel the exact same way about The Nun, that some characters will play very well. Some characters I like to refer to as auxiliary players, and they play well as part of a team. Now, again, I haven't seen any of the Annabelle movies. I haven't seen the two Nun films, so I personally cannot say that I didn't like them. I'm just going on the general consensus. But the reason I didn't go see them is because I didn't think the movies looked very good. And I don't go see every horror movie that comes out. I will only go if I think it looks really good and if it appeals to me. If I was 17 or 18, yeah, I probably would be first in line to watch The Nun and The Nun 2 because it's, but I'm 46, so but there are some characters that can look creepy and can be very creepy, but don't necessarily, and I understand that The Nun and The Nun 2 made lots of money at the box office. I get it. Financially, sure. But I just don't think the characters worked as well outside of the universe. And the general consensus, I think, is that. And so, sometimes just because something works really well in a universe doesn't mean that it should have its own fucking trilogy, And so, but hey, maybe that's why I wouldn't make a good studio executive. I would be thinking, I probably wouldn't I probably wouldn't. Because I would be thinking too much with my heart. I'd be thinking too much, from an artistic, I'd be like, but Dave, this is what's hot right now. This is what the market is telling us. I mean, do you not see? And now every studio is wanting to make their own version of Terrifier. You know what I mean? It's like, well, this is what's hot right now. We got to do is we got to make 9,000 of them. That's what the people want. No, that's not necessarily true. Evil Alex says, watch Annabelle Creation. It's legit, great. And 3 was decent also. Well, Creation was the one that Sandberg did, right? I think. Josh McKenna, another $9.99. Thank you, Josh. He says, thanks for taking your time with Super Chats. Yeah, no problem. Some channels get tons of Super Chats and speed through them. I wish other channels gave nice, detailed responses like you do. You're a good communicator. Thank you, Josh. I appreciate that. Yeah, well, listen, I mean, obviously I encourage Super Chats. Obviously, it helps the channel, and I appreciate it. But I don't differentiate between the level of Super Chat. So if somebody sends in a $5 Super Chat or a $100 Super Chat, I will, depending on the complexity of the question, of course, but I will always, I don't sit there and see a $100 Super Chat and, think to myself, oh, that's $100. I've got to spend an hour on this. And I don't see a $5 one and think, oh, that's only $5. I only have to spend 10 seconds on this. Not at all. Because sometimes somebody might send in a $100 one and it's a question that it's $100, but it's a question that just requires like a 30-second response. And they know that, they're just, they're just feeling really generous and they want to, support the channel. And then sometimes somebody will send in a $5 one and it'll be a question that requires quite an in-depth response, and you guys know, I mean, there are times I spent like 10 minutes on a $5 Super Chat. So I do that. And some people have been, ticked off about that. I have people go, well, you spent time on Super Chats. It's like, well, yeah, because they've paid to have their question answered. And this is my channel, and I like to, respond in the best way I feel possible. If you don't like it, well, then don't watch. Or if you want your question guaranteed an answer, spend the $5 and send in a Super Chat. I mean, it's that simple, folks. I mean, this is, I don't understand some people. I don't understand. Like, I don't jump when you say, or I don't jump when you tell me to. I mean, this is my channel and this is how I operate and it works for me. And people like to send in Super Chats because they're nice and they like to support the channel and they like to, get something. They don't have to, right? It's like becoming a member. By the way, become a member, folks. Become a member. Become a member. There's a member poll on my channel right now on the next horror. Now, this is for level number 2, though. You got to become part of level number 2 for this. But even if you're part of level number 1, you get your name highlighted in green, special emojis, member-only chats, and member Q&As as well. So think about considering it. I'd appreciate it. Frank, what's going on? Frankly speaking, Riker, Annabelle versus G.I. Joe. Toy Story style, says Josh Stevens. Frank says, we need a remake of Doll Man versus Demonic Toys. Seeing Clown in the Cornfield tomorrow. Yeah. You know what? I hear it's supposed to be good. When I watched the trailer for Clown in a Cornfield, I thought it looked like, I'm not going to say I thought it looked like crap, but it did not interest me. I just was like, yeah, this just looks like I'm not going to go to the theater to see this movie. And I don't mean that into any disrespect to those who will. It just takes a lot for me to go to the theater. I have to be like, oh yes, and I think it's because the movie-going experience to me, like, I love the movie-going experience. I love movie theaters. I always have. But, you know, there are some movies that, look, watching a movie, no matter what movie it is, even if it's a rom-com, watching a movie on a 30-foot screen in a dark theater is always a great experience no matter the movie. But I much prefer, and I like to sort of reserve my movie-going experience for movies I'm like, oh, I've got to see, where I know that the movie theater experience is going to be part of the experience of watching that movie. I mean, whether I watch, I don't know, I'm going to date myself here, Runaway Bride. Why would I watch Runaway Bride? But you know what I mean, right? Like some rom-com, whether I'm watching it in the theater or watching it at home, the experience of watching it doesn't really, but if I'm watching like, Star Wars or Indiana Jones or, even Halloween, or some big epic horror movie, like The Conjuring, then that's different, right? I mean, that's where the theater experience becomes a part of it, right? But Clown in a Cornfield didn't appeal to me at all. It just kind of looked like, but I hear apparently it's a really good slasher, apparently. So, hey, I won't go to the theater to see it, but I will watch it when it comes to streaming. Frank says, Dave, the girls at the red light district would definitely disagree with you on the super chat money amount. $5 only gets you a looky-see. Well, that's true. That's true. But here, I don't discriminate here, Frank. I mean, $5, I encourage the whole thing. The whole thing. If you want to send in, $5, $10, $20, hey, I mean, that's what it'll be. That's what it'll be. Send them in, folks. Yeah, see, Josh says Clown in a Cornfield has 85% on Rotten. Incredible. I am very curious to see it to know why. Maybe that itself is worth a trip to the theater. I don't know. We'll see. Michael King says, you wouldn't like the cinema-going experience in Scotland, Dave. Oh, no? Why is that? Is everybody yelling and screaming and yelling and screaming? I've never been to a theater that has done that. Like what you saw with Minecraft, that must be an American thing. I don't know. I've been to theater. I've had theater experiences where people wouldn't, stop talking or, they wouldn't get off their phones, that kind of standard sort of stuff. But I've never had a theater experience where like wild, crazy, off the wall, bonkers shit happens. Haven't had that. Well, there's that story that I like to tell where I went to see Godzilla, King of the Monsters, which I still, to this day, say it is the best Godzilla movie in the Monsterverse. Godzilla, King of the Monsters, 2019. It's better than any of the Kong versus shit. It's better than Kong Skull Island. It's better than the first Godzilla. Although there's things about the first Godzilla I like, but things I don't like. But anyway, I was in the theater to see it, and there was this kid in front of me that was on his phone. And I didn't care because the movie hadn't started yet. It's during the previews, the pre-show, whatever. And then the movie starts, or then the trailers begin, and he's still on his phone. I'm like, okay, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. It's the trailers. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. And he was playing some game like Candy Crush or some nonsense like that. And then the movie begins, and he looks like really invested in this. Like he looks invested into what he's playing. And the movie begins, the Warner Brothers logo comes up onto the screen, and I'm like, no, you're out, buddy. No, so I just lean over, and I lean right beside him. So my voice comes right beside his ear, and this is all I say. Literally, I say it like this. I just say, you're going to want to put that away. That's it. you're going to want to put that away. Just very, and he goes, oh, sorry. I didn't hear a peep out of it. Didn't hear a peep. I will never understand that. I don't want to get on a big thing about this, but I will never understand people who sit in theaters just on their phones. I don't understand. It's well, there's quite a few things I could say that aren't politically correct, but it's fill in the blanks. I just think it's ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense. Why are you there? It's crazy. Evil Alex says, I love the Kong Godzilla shit. Godzilla X Kong was one of my favorite films last year. Yeah, it's too cartoony to me. It's too, look, if the universe had started that way, fine. But the universe didn't start that way. When you watch that first Godzilla film from 2014, it's quite grounded. It's quite mature. Now, there are things about it that don't work, but when you look at Godzilla 2014 and then you look at Godzilla X Kong, those are two completely different approaches to the universe. Godzilla X Kong is just a fucking video game. It's ridiculous. It's absurd. And maybe that's why you like it, and that's fair. I'm speaking about me. I think it's ridiculous, and it's absurd, and it turns me off. I can't take this seriously. It's just stupid to me. This is what I didn't like about the Godzilla movies from the 60s and the 70s that went too kiddie-like. I didn't like the kiddie approach. I didn't like that Godzilla became, he was talking in movies and it was dumb. It was dumb. Like when you watch that first Godzilla movie from 1954, not the American remake from 1956, but the Godzilla movie from 1954, yes, it's dated. Yes, the effects are dated. We can get, blah, 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 blah. Okay, fine. But when you watch it, the themes of that movie, there's a reason why the Americans, when they distributed it in 1956 in the U.S., why they didn't lean into the nuclear themes, because they had just bombed the shit out of two of, Japan's cities. And, Godzilla, I'm simplifying this, but the reason why Godzilla exists, for those of you that may not know, the reason why there is a Godzilla, the reason why he's nuclear is because of the attacks on Japan in the 1940s. Godzilla was used as a metaphor and a warning to the nuclear testing that was going on in the Pacific Ocean, if I'm not mistaken, in and around those times. It was still going on. And the devastation and the innocent people, and look, we can get into a moral, debate about, whether it had to be done to end the war or not. That's not what I'm here to discuss. What I'm here to discuss is, or say is that's why Godzilla exists. That's why he's nuclear. That's why. And so there were real, themes in that original film that an American audience was sheltered from, which is why they brought in the whole, not completely, but pretty much, which is why they brought in Raymond Burr to play Steve Martin, and there was this whole other angle and how they do it. And so Godzilla, its inception was rooted in a very serious thing. When you watch that Godzilla trailer from 2014, that Comic-Con, watch the Comic-Con Godzilla trailer from 2014, and who do you hear? You hear Oppenheimer's Destroyer of All Worlds speech, the real Oppenheimer. You hear his speech. That's not an accident, right? And when you watch, not the teaser trailer, the Comic-Con, the 2014 or 2013, the film came out in 2014, but it might have been the previous year. The San Diego Comic-Con Godzilla teaser trailer, where it opens up with just that seeing this landscape, seeing all this destruction, hearing Oppenheimer's speech, I am death, the destroyer of worlds. I think it's that speech. God, I'm going to sound like an ass if it's not, but I'm pretty sure it is. And we're seeing it, and there's this mature, serious, apocalyptic, dystopian vibe, but it's playing it like Shakespeare. And again, when I say playing it like Shakespeare, I just mean it's playing it serious. You know what I mean? It doesn't look like Kong versus Godzilla. You know what I mean? This looks like, this is going to be really deep, like really interesting, like a very human, character-driven story, like what Godzilla -1 became. Right? But it looked like it was going to have the Hollywood budget and all this kind of stuff. And I'm just like, wow, I'm in, I'm sold. And then when I watched the subsequent trailers, I'm like, okay, maybe a little less of that, but still, this could be good. This could be good. This could be good. And then when I watched the movie, I didn't like it nearly as much as I thought I was going to. One of the complaints was Godzilla's not on screen a lot. I agree, although I think that's the least of its problems. I think that could have worked if they played. That could have worked. The Jaws thing could have worked. We're not showing, the shark. If the characters were like, if we were more invested in the characters, killing off Bryan Cranston, who's arguably the best actor in the movie early, sort of, like the problem with Godzilla wasn't that we didn't see Godzilla a lot, is that the characters weren't developed enough in order for us to care about the characters the ways that you would want to if you're going to play the Jaws. Like if you're going to play the Jaws route, if you're going to, be a slow burn, not show the monster, you better make sure that the character part of the story is a great one. So the audience can get emotionally invested into the characters so that we don't care that Godzilla's not on screen. And when he comes on screen, it feels earned and exciting and all that kind of stuff. Like in Jaws, when you watch, nobody cared that we didn't see the shark. Nobody cared because we were so invested into Roy Scheider's, Chief Brody and Hooper and Quint, and it was such a character-driven film. And that's what I thought this was going to be. And then so you start, and it was a little bit, not quite the way I want to, but so you look at that, and then you look at Godzilla X Kong. Like, what the fuck happened? Like, what are we doing? Like, I just don't, like, this is just, it's an Xbox video game to me. It's nonsense. It's like, hey, kids, bring your kid. Like, to me, it's a kid's movie. Like at the end of the day, this is, and I say this with all due respect to everybody who worked on it, who wrote it. I just look at this as it's a kid's movie. It's like, do you want to go see Inside Out or do you want to go see Godzilla X Kong, kids? Like, what do you want? Godzilla X Kong, daddy! Like, it looks ridiculous. It just looks silly to me. And so but now you might say, well, why do you think Godzilla 2019 because I think it's a good hybrid between the two, right? I think Godzilla King of the Monsters is a nice sort of hybrid between the two. Because if we're going to go here and we're going to abandon what that Comic-Con teaser set up, which is apparently what they did, I thought Godzilla King of the Monsters was a nice sort of middle ground. Okay, we're not going to go as deep as I was hoping they were going to go, but we're not going to go full on video game either. Great, this is a nice sort of hybrid. You know what I mean? This is like Godzilla 1985. You know what I mean? Like this is, for those of you that are Godzilla fans, you know what I'm talking about. It's a nice kind of middle ground, But man, I was jumping off the walls when I saw that San Diego Comic-Con teaser. Again, not the teaser. You would have to YouTube Godzilla San Diego Comic-Con teaser. It is amazing. And you watch that and you're like, oh fuck, shit just got real. Like I remember watching that going, yes, they're going to make it serious and apocalyptic and it's going to be character driven and it's going to be a drama. It's going to be a Godzilla film and like what Godzilla -1. Why do we love Godzilla -1? Is it because the effects are amazing? No, I'm not saying they're not amazing. They are amazing, especially for the budget. But that's not why we love it. We love it because it was a character driven story. It was a character driven story. You know what I mean? And when you can do that against the backdrop of this apocalyptic nuclear monster and all these themes and should we or shouldn't we? What's right? What's wrong? This human story. Godzilla is a metaphor. Godzilla is a warning. For those of you that don't know, Godzilla was a warning. Godzilla was a warning from the Japanese to the world. That is what Godzilla was. That is why Godzilla was created. The actual reason. That's why he's nuclear, right? And I know that it's why, again, at the grassroots, at the nucleus, that's what Godzilla was. He was a warning from the Japanese to the world that we shouldn't be doing this. We shouldn't be playing with this kind of power. Because look what can happen. I mean, not actually a Godzilla created. They're not literally saying that Godzilla is going to create, or that you're going to create this big dinosaur. That's not, but they're saying that it's the destruction, right? Godzilla is a metaphor for that. And that's why he's nuclear and why he can't be stopped. And so, when you actually know the real reason, and you watch that San Diego Comic-Con teaser, you go, yeah, this is what I want to see. I want to see another film that is like that, that's got depth and themes and messages and Godzilla wrecking stuff. Yes, you can have that. It's not either or. It's like the Pamela Voorhees thing. You can have Pamela Voorhees and also have this. It's not either or. You can have both. But when you are so lopsided, which is the problem, with Godzilla X Kong and Godzilla versus Kong, whatever, when you're so lopsided, when you bring that other side up, oh man, it's like, yeah, fuck yeah. Because otherwise, if you're just going to make a movie like Godzilla X Kong, why don't you just make an animated movie? I mean, I'm just like, standing on aircraft carriers, and it's a great visual for a painting. But I'm just like, really? Like, come on, man. I don't know. That's how I feel. And I know I'm likely in the minority on that. Have I got all the, let me just double check. I don't think anything else came in. Just make sure. No. Okay, good. Just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. Josh Stevens says Godzilla -1 is the bomb. Pardon the pun. Even my young kids realized how good it was, and it's scarier because of the suspense, which makes the movie way better with much less special effects. I agree. It's such a Godzilla -1 was, a return to, now, hang on, I'm getting ahead of myself, was a return to form. My worry is, and I know it's the same director, but my worry is what is going to happen with Godzilla -2, or whatever the sequel is going to be called. That's my worry, because I hear that they're looking to bring like other monsters in. I just hope they don't lose sight of the nucleus of what it's about. Maybe it's another monster that's also nuclear or has nuclear capabilities or whatever that means. Or like, I just don't want them to lose. I don't want it to turn. I just hope it doesn't turn into just a monster movie, because, and there's nothing wrong with it being a monster movie, but I just hope if you're going to go that route, then make it about, then have that balance, right? Like, I know you got to go, but at least have a bit of that balance there, a bit of something there. So we don't lose sight of that, because it can be a powerful metaphor and a powerful message, and so I don't know what they're going to do with Godzilla -2 or whatever it's going to be called, the sequel to Godzilla -1. But I loved Godzilla -1. I thought it was great. I thought my favorite Godzilla movies are the original, obviously back in the 50s. The 1985 movie, Godzilla 1985. Now, that's a combination of a number of things. It was the first Godzilla movie I ever saw in the movie theater. I still think it's the best Godzilla suit ever created. There are moments in that film where it doesn't look like, and I don't say this I'm serious. I think it holds up just as well as the shark in Jaws. There's something about that suit, because it was a mixture of animatronics and a guy in a suit. But there's something about the later Godzilla movies in the 90s and in the early 2000s where I'm just like, it just looks like a guy in a suit. But Godzilla 1985, there's something about it that just it holds up. Maybe I'm being blinded by my rose-colored glasses. I don't know, my nostalgic glasses. But it takes itself seriously. He's not fighting any monsters. It's a direct sequel to the 1954 original film. And so, in that sense, it harkens back to those themes. He's not fighting any monsters. He just awakens after 50 years or whatever, or 30 years. Comes back to haunt Tokyo again. And I think it's a good film. Still to this day, it's my favorite Godzilla movie. Godzilla -1 is up there. One of my favorites for sure. And Godzilla King of the Monsters, because I think it's a nice balance. I do have some nostalgia for some of the 70s Godzilla movies, like Godzilla versus Gigan, Godzilla versus, what's the one with Jet Jaguar? Megalon? I think it's Godzilla versus Megalon. Jet Jaguar. There's people watching this going, what the hell is he talking about? Where are my Godzilla brothers and sisters who know what I'm talking about when I say Jet Jaguar? But there are definitely several late 60s, 70s Godzilla films that I do like. But overall, they became really cheesy, campy, kiddie, and just stupid. And I don't just mean that because it like of a production value thing. I mean that as just, these are just stupid, campy, dumb movies. And so most of them I don't like, but there's several in there that I do. And so, yeah, I don't know, man, but yeah, if you haven't seen it, watch that Comic-Con trailer, the Godzilla teaser Comic-Con trailer from 2013 or 14 or whatever. It has to be the Comic-Con teaser, not just any teaser. You have to put in Comic-Con or you're going to get all the others. Let me see here. Michael King says, I'm going to watch -1 tonight. Have been convinced. You should. Now, you can watch it with subtitles or you can watch it dubbed. I'm not one of those people where I'm a snob, and maybe it's because I'm a voice actor, and I understand that voice actors, I haven't done this, although that's not necessarily entirely true. I haven't dubbed a foreign film, but I have dubbed animation from a different market into the North American market. But I will always watch a movie subtitled. Because, you get the real sort of thing. But for me, and I only speak for myself, because I don't watch a lot of subtitled films, it always takes me about 10 minutes to get the rhythm, right? The read, watch, right? And sometimes text might not be on the screen for that long, right? So it really is. Now, if you watch subtitled foreign films all the time, well, then you've developed that, and it's like riding a bike. But movies, I always try to watch subtitled. If I get sort of into the movie and I realize these subtitles are not on the screen very long and I'm having a very difficult time knowing what's going on because I can't read fast, you know what I mean? Or whatever the case is, then I will watch the dubbed version. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. That's why it exists. That's why it's there. Now, some of the translation may be a bit different because languages do translate a bit differently, but overall, you get it. Where I will not watch, or where I will be very apprehensive with watching a dubbed situation, is when it comes to a series, and if the narrative is quite complex. So, like, for example, one of my favorite shows in the last, ever, is the German show Dark. Have you guys watched Dark? 3 seasons. It is one of the most cerebral, intense shows I've ever watched, but the concept and the themes are brilliant and fascinating. And I was just on the edge of my seat all the time. But it is in I think it's German, right? One of the first fully German shows, I think, on Netflix, and on Netflix, not the first German show, but on Netflix, and it was amazing, but it was so intense, and the concepts and the themes and the ideas were so deep and so philosophical and so cerebral that I had to watch the dubbed version. I couldn't read and watch because what they're speaking about is like you're thinking and reading and watching and thinking. Like I just couldn't do it. It was just too much. It was too much. So that's a show that because if I'm going to invest in this series, like 10 episodes over, 3 seasons, I mean, this is something I got to know what's going on right out of the gate. I got to be on par, know what's going on. I can't keep, going back and forward and back. Like I got to know what's going on. You know what I mean? So that's a show I did watch dubbed and it was because of that. It was because of the themes and the nature of the subject matter. But movies, I always try to watch subtitled, and 9 times out of 10 I will. Like Parasite, for example. I don't know, was there a dubbed version of Parasite? I can't remember, but Parasite I watched, subtitled, and it was great because I found the rhythm. But there's always that rhythm, there's always that dance. It's like, okay, because you watch some movies where the subtitles are on screen for a good amount of time and it doesn't hurt the flow, and you can read and watch and you get what's going on. And then there's some movies, like when I watched what's that movie just the last couple years, what's that movie, the one, the poster has the guy with the axe in his face. Darren says it's one of the best jump scares in it, and it does. It's a great film. Spanish film, I believe. What is it called again? Why am I blanking on this? Chat room will let me know. Chat room will let me know. Something evil lurks. Where evil lurks? When evil lurks? That's it. Where evil lurks or when evil lurks. Everybody's looking it up right now. You know the one I'm talking about. When evil lurks or where evil lurks. I believe it's the... anyway, so I watched that subtitle, but that was a bit tricky. For me, if you are used to this, totally get it. But for me, there were moments in that film where those subtitles were on screen for what felt like literally 0.7 seconds. And I'm just like, when evil lurks, says Evil Alex. Thank you. There were moments where I'm like, I completely missed what they said there because I had to go back and so it depends on the movie. It depends on the movie. Anyways, how did I get on that? Yeah, you're going to go watch Godzilla -1. Yeah, I think watch it subtitled if you can. If you can't, you have to watch the dubbed version. That's okay too. I'm not one of these people who's like, oh, you're not getting the full experience if you're not watching. Shut up. Jesus Christ. Get out of here, you elitist prick. Now, there is truth, before I get yelled at, there is truth that obviously the translation from certain languages to English can be a bit different, right? And when you watch the dubbed version, you're likely not hearing that actor speaking the English words, right? You're hearing a voice actor. So some of the nuance of the performances or, the language and the translation, yeah, it can be a bit different. And I understand that. But at the end of the day, Brian Mean says, Dave is truly amazing. Oh, thank you. At speaking solo. I'm not kidding. I couldn't make it longer than 10 minutes. Well, I've been doing it a long time. I've been doing it. And when I say long time, I mean before YouTube. I've been on the radio. I took broadcasting in college. I come from a media family. I had my first on-air radio experience when I was 13 years old because of my father, who was on the radio. Back in the 80s, I started recording myself on cassette tape and making funny voices and stories. And so I'm very comfortable speaking solo and speaking in a broadcasting performance hosting, situation. Yeah, I'm very comfortable. And I'm a professional voice actor. So obviously having those skills help. But yeah, no, it doesn't, I don't feel any, it's always fun to have somebody to bounce things off of and to have a co-host or, a guest, but I have no issues, hosting solo. It is a skill. It is because not everybody can do it. And there's a variety of reasons of why people can't. And so I think the skill is to not just to be able to do it, but to be able to do it and make it interesting for however long you're on. You could make something interesting for 5 minutes, but can you make something interesting for 2 hours? Right. And so I appreciate the compliment. Thank you. Yeah, it's cool. I'm all right. One more minute left in the show. Mendel Goodman says, Dave, do you plan on showing your film in theaters or streaming services? You mean the house on Port Robinson Road? I have no idea. Wherever it would be shown. That might not be up to me necessarily. The movie, I did do a preliminary. And when I say this, I say preliminary. So there's no actuals, but I did start the process of doing a preliminary budget breakdown. And my preliminary ballpark figure when I think of the script was correct. It's about a $2 to $3 million film. And so and again, that might go up a little bit, it might come down a little bit once, a producer comes on board. And line producer, and people start to come on board, and we start to break down the script and actually figure out the actuals at that point. But I have done a preliminary, just kind of a rough sort of thing with all the departments and all the, all that kind of stuff. And I based it on a 6-week shoot. But once people come on board and we go through it with a fine-tooth comb, that 6-week shoot could become an 8-week shoot. It could become a 4-week shoot. I mean, you know what I mean? And so it all depends on the details of that. But what the distribution path will be for the house on Port Robinson Road, I don't know. I mean, would it be something that winds up in the theaters? Well, it would depend on who's the distributor, right? Who wants to take a chance on it, who believes in it and feels that it might be worth going that path, or it might be better for streaming. It might wind up on Netflix or Prime, or I have no idea. At this point, I don't know. I think at this point in my career as a filmmaker, and with how popular streaming is, look, to have a movie in a movie theater and get a wide release would be amazing, right? I mean, that would be amazing. That would be amazing to, be able to sit in a movie theater and watch people watch my movie and to see my poster inside the theater and have my movie maybe make, $20 million at the box office or something. I mean, that'd be amazing, right? That'd be amazing. And I certainly would absolutely be open to that path. But, maybe the House on Port Robinson Road's path is better for streaming, like an original Shudder film or an original Netflix movie or an original, Prime movie, whatever. I have no idea. I am very open to the pathways of distribution. I don't want to pigeonhole myself into thinking it has to be one area, because the movie hasn't been made yet. So it might become more apparent after the movie is made. It might become more apparent that a studio or, a distributor, if they're not on board already while we're making the movie, it might be more apparent that, oh, this is set up for a, theatrical run here. This could be good in the theaters. Or somebody might say, you know what, this would be great for a, Shudder, or this would be great for, Netflix, or, whatever. I mean, I don't know. I have no idea yet. But if I had to choose, all things considered, if I could just choose and snap my fingers and away you go, yeah, a theatrical release would be amazing. You know what I mean? Would be awesome. But I'm open to all avenues of distribution. I have no idea. But yeah, a preliminary budget has been done. Preliminary. Again, there's no actuals that can go up or down, but I was right when I did the preliminary and I broke it all down. I was right that it's between $2 and $5 million. Like that's what I think it probably is going to be. You know what I mean? Because again, if I'm going to rebuild the farmhouse, that alone is probably $500,000 right there, right? So it's but when the time comes to actually have actuals, then that might go up, it might come down. We'll see. All right, folks. Well, listen, that is going to do it for me here on this episode of McRae Live. I want to thank you, of course, for tuning in. Thank you to the super chats that came in. I really appreciate it. Thank you to my moderators, of course. I appreciate you guys doing what you guys do. Thank you. And if you're watching after the fact, jump into the comment section. Let me know your thoughts on anything I had to say here today, but specifically, of course, the Conjuring universe, and the trailer that was released today, The Conjuring Last Rites. Let me know your thoughts. Did you love it? Did you not love it? Are you excited about it? Did it move the needle for you? Maybe it didn't. I don't know. Jump into the comment section and let me know your thoughts. Have a great rest of your Thursday, folks, and I will talk to you all very, very soon. In the meantime and in between time, I will talk to you soon. Hang on a sec here. There we go. That's better. Cheers.